Enterprises presenting coverage of Winston Cup pole qualifying from Pocono Raceway in Pennsylvania in advance of Sunday's Pennsylvania 500 here on the 2.5-mile Super Speedway. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rick Benjamin. Welcome to Pocono Raceway. It's great to have you with us today for Winston Cup pole qualifying. It's been a warm, sunny day here just about all day long, but about 15 minutes ago, some clouds gathered, and we've had a brief rain shower. So pole qualifying is on hold for at least a few minutes. But we're going to be with you here live throughout the afternoon from Pocono Raceway. We'll have full coverage. We'll talk to a lot of drivers, and we'll show you these Winston Cup stars as they go on track to secure their starting positions for Sunday's Pennsylvania 500. We've got a lot to talk to you about this afternoon. We've got a full list of drivers. More than 40 drivers entered this weekend. Our analyst for our coverage of pole qualifying is NASCAR Busch Series star Phil Parsons. Welcome. It's good to have you with us today.
Great to be here.
It's been a while since you've raced here, I know, but you watched practice. This is a tough track to get around.
It really is. We had some trouble with the guys that are really top running cars. So, this track is so unique. There's three extremely different cars here, and you can get from one either one.
Now, the defending race winner here is Rusty Wallace, and he'll be among one of the first cars to try to qualify here this afternoon. He is down on pit road right now with our Matt Yoakum.
Practice, but I think in the race it'll be fine. Well, he knows how to get around this place. 3 victories here at Pocono. Steve Burns? Matt, I'm with Ray Evernham, the crew chief for Jeff Gordon. Ray, this track is tough enough to negotiate on a good day. What's this rain shower do to your plans?
Well, anytime you draw an early number here at Pocono, you're not in real good shape. We had a real fast car in practice. I don't think the track is going to really do anything different, but it's going to give an advantage, because now we're going to be later, so the guys that go later, the track's going to get faster as it goes on. So, those of us that are going out in the first 10 are going to be a little bit of a disadvantage.
Okay, Ray, thanks very much. Let's go back upstairs to Rick Benjamin.
Jeff Gordon holds the track qualifying record. He's won 2 consecutive 500-mile events here at Pocono. In the month of June, he'll try for a sweep on Sunday. We'll come back to cover his qualifying run, the rest of the activity on pole day at Pocono in a moment. Welcome back live to Pocono Raceway in Pennsylvania. Rick Benjamin, Phil Parsons, Steve Burns, Matt Yoakum with you today on Fox Sports for Pennsylvania 500 pole qualifying. And we're on hold for a moment. Rain delay. We had a brief shower a few moments ago. The first car has yet to roll. As you can see, the jet dryers are out, as are a host of other safety trucks here at the Speedway. And we should be ready to go in just a couple of moments. There has been some problem here, Phil Parsons. A couple of guys got into the wall in practice this morning. We're going to show you some pictures now of the driver who's won 2 races on the season, including last week at New Hampshire. What happened to Jeff Burton here?
Jeff, I talked to Brett Bodine, who had talked to Jeff, and he said just got pushing a little bit off of the corner. That's turn 1 right there. And then he just kind of tried to grab the car to make sure he didn't push up into the wall. That's when he lost the back end and around it went. Not a considerable amount of damage, but enough that he had to get a backup car out.
Dinged up the back end of the Exide Batteries Ford quite a bit. Let's find out the condition of the driver, Matt Yoakum.
Well, Jeff, last week, Loudon, a victory today, a little bit rough going in practice. What happened?
Well, the car was really good. We were the fastest car here for quite a while, and I got into 1. I got in there like I'd been getting into it. I jumped into gas, and when I did, it pushed. Eased out of the gas, but it just kept pushing, and it got me up in the gray stuff, and I just lost it and ended up spinning. It just caught the rear bumper, but when it did, it took all the, the trunk and everything and shoved it over. It didn't hurt the frame or anything, but it's too much work to try to get it fixed. We're better off unrolling this car.
How much of a thrash was it for you guys? Because I know that you only had 1 Jericho transmission and it was in the wrecked car.
Well, what happens is, Pocono is so different from everywhere we go. This is a really good race car. This car has had a chance to win quite a few races, but it was set up for those kind of racetracks, so we had to do quite a bit of work to get it ready. When we got it ready, we went out and ran. We didn't like the engine that was in it, so took the engine out of the car that we'd run so well in, and we're putting that in now.
And they were in the top 10 as far as the practice times goes, right?
They're very strong, scheduled to go out 4th in line to qualify here, but that may change as they work on the backup car. Phil, we're just past halfway in this season. Could you ask for a closer Winston Cup points chase than this?
It really is incredible. The thing is, when you start 42 or 43 cars, you can lose up to 120, 30 points if you have trouble early. So you see Terry Labonte with about 165 points on 4th place. So, I mean, most of that lead could evaporate in just a flash.
At Dale Earnhardt, 6th, certainly a driver not to be counted out of the title chase because you can make up a lot of ground in a couple of weeks with a couple of wins.
You really can. He's really 2 races from being back in the hunt. If the leaders have trouble in 2 races, then he's right back in it.
Setting up a great second half of 1997 in the Winston Cup Series. The driver who drives for Dale Earnhardt is going to try to make his first Winston Cup start this weekend. Standing by with our Steve Burns.
That's right, Rick. It's Steve Park. He's been tearing it up on the Busch Series this year. Won a race for Dale Earnhardt, trying to make your debut. How are you doing, Steve?
Well, I'll tell you right now, we came down about 2 weeks ago. We had the opportunity to test with the Burger King car and ran real well. And we come back, and we're not sure if the track changed a little bit or what. But we're struggling a little bit. But we're looking to pick it up in qualifying. Hopefully, put the Burger King car in the top 25 first round.
Steve, you grew up in the Northeast, raced modifieds. Your career has gone so far, so fast. What's it like to be here at Pocono, driving for Dale Earnhardt and against Dale Earnhardt?
Well, it's almost a dream come true. Growing up as a kid, I always wanted to compete against Dale Earnhardt because he was always winning all the races. And now to have that dream realized, to compete not only against him but also with him is pretty exciting. And right now, it's our main focus is just trying to get qualified for this race and get in there and turn all the laps Sunday and get as much experience as we can.
Well, Rick, they're clamoring for his autograph, so we better let Steve Park go.
Thank you.
Clamoring for a sandwich, no doubt, too, with that Burger King sponsorship on the side of the car. We'll talk to Phil Parsons about Steve Park, and we'll talk a lot more about Winston Cup racing, preparing for pole qualifying at Pocono. We'll be right back. Track drying quickly here at Pocono Raceway in Long Pond, Pennsylvania. Pole qualifying for the NASCAR Winston Cup Tour today on Fox Sports Net. Trucks are out drying things off. The jet dryers have been out too. Our brief rain shower put a little moisture in the track. Phil should have cooled things down a little for these drivers when they get going.
Well, it really will. I think, as Rusty Wallace said, he's not sure whether to be happy or sad because he's the first car out. But you know, a lot of times it cools the track down. That should make it faster. But you don't know that a lot of times the jet dryer that they use here leaves a little residue on the racetrack. So sometimes that makes it a little bit slicker. I know we tested at Nazareth, really just about an hour up the road here, and back in, I guess, April. And we had run till lunchtime, got a little bit of rain, and the guys at the racetrack jumped in and got the jet dryer out and dry the track for us. But the track was a half a second off after the little rain shower because I think just because of the residue of the jet dryer, and we only had one car, so you can't wear that off the racetrack that quick. So we basically had to abort the test and go on home. But as Rusty said, I think I'd like to be about the 10th or 15th car out. But you draw where you draw, and that's what happens.
Well, the driver we're going to talk to next is going to be 15th in line. Mark Martin has won 2 races this year so far. Matt Yoakum, maybe this will be number 3 this weekend.
Well, Rick, they were 4th fastest in practice. Mark is talking to Jimmy Fitting. Mark, you're 4th fastest, but the rain, how is this going to hurt or help your setup for qualifying?
I'm afraid that it won't play into our hands. We were, I think we were in better shape with it real hot. But, you never know. It might be better for us. But we had our car working in a real hot sun and had anticipated it getting a little hotter for qualifying. So now it's not going to be. And, there may be surprises out there for all of us. Who knows?
Do you like this place? I mean, you've had a second place here a couple times.
Oh, this is a wonderful place to race at. It's a great racetrack to race on. I like it.
Well, that's Mark Martin. He's had 2 wins this season. Hopes number 3 comes Sunday. Steve Burns?
Matt, you know what amazes me is how the crowds for qualifying keep getting bigger and bigger. We see packed houses on race day, but for qualifying, a large part of the grandstand here is filled. But also take a look over here. These race fans have been standing along pit road since about 9 o'clock this morning. Look, we got Jimmy Spencer fans. Hey, what else do we have here? These fans, they go the entire length of the grandstand. Hey, what's your name? Where are you from?
Brent Grimaud, Perryville, Missouri.
Who are you pulling for?
Terry Labonte.
You come a long way from Missouri.
Yeah.
Well worth the trip. You like this racetrack?
You're damn right. This is nice. This is really nice.
How about you, sir?
Very nice. Very nice to be here.
Who are you pulling for?
Jimmy Spencer.
How long you guys been standing out here? We're trying to get an autograph.
All morning.
We got here.
Is it worth it?
Yeah.
9 o'clock. We've been out here since. It's been well worth it.
right. Hey, Corky, take a look down here, our cameraman. You can see folks lined up, and this is the longest front stretch in NASCAR Winston Cup racing, and they've been lined up, as our folks said, since 9 o'clock this morning. What do you think, Rick?
I think we ought to have the cold drink concession down there today. That's what I think we ought to be doing, Steve Burns. Phil Parsons, these fans really love the sport, obviously, and Pocono is one of those places where you can get very close to your favorite driver.
When you really can, and the thing is, we don't come up in this area that often. The Winston Cup Series comes up here twice in this area. We go to Nazareth once, so it's not like the Carolinas where they can see us at Charlotte, at Rockingham,
Sure.
Darlington, which is close. Martinsville's pretty close, so the race fans up here are really, really rabid race fans, and they really love their racing.
We showed you earlier how the 99 car of Jeff Burton got in the wall. They're going to a backup car. 2 other Winston Cup drivers had problems in practice. We'll tell you a little more about that when we continue. We're still in rain delay, but actually the rain stopped several moments ago. Track's just about dry, and we should be set to go with pole qualifying at Pocono after this. Back live at Pocono Raceway in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania 500 qualifying. It's pole day in the NASCAR Winston Cup Series on Fox Sports Net. We're glad to have you along. Waiting while the track dries. They're just doing a little more cleanup work on the backstretch here in about 10 minutes or so. We have to be ready to fire up 45 NASCAR Winston Cup cars, see who's the fastest of all, and who'll lead the field of green Sunday afternoon for the Pennsylvania 500. The driver who was quickest in practice today, standing by with our Matt Yoakum.
Well, Rick, since Martinsville in the spring, Joe Nemechek 3 times in the front row. You're on the front row, fastest time during practice. But how about qualifying, especially now we've had all the showers?
I think if you went fast in practice, you're going to go fast again qualifying. And can't say enough about this whole Bell South team, Tony Glover and all the guys who give me a heck of a race car, Keith Simmons and all the engine guys, building some killer engines and just trying to do a good job for Felix.
It seems like the last 5 races, your car has been 5th or better in qualifying. Things are really beginning to come around for you guys.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I got my first career pole at California, and just a lot of good things have happened this year, and I'm just so happy to be here and be running competitive. I mean, it feels so good, and all of our guys are smiling, I'm smiling, and it just means a lot. And hopefully we won't get a little rain shower halfway between. Hopefully everybody will have the same racetrack to race on the whole time, and I think we'll have a shot at it.
Well, these guys are pretty pumped up. They're pretty pumped up. They think that number 2 will come today. Steve Burns?
Matt with Johnny Benson, the driver of the Pennzoil Pontiac. Johnny, you go out 3rd. We were just looking at the practice times. That didn't look too good, but is that indicative of how well or not you're running?
Well, it's probably as bad as we're running. I don't know if it's going to matter. I mean, we'll hope it cools the track off enough to help us out, but it rained pretty hard. It's going to be a while before they get it dry, so I don't know. We're just going to find out. Hopefully it'll race good, but right now we're struggling a little bit on the qualifying deal.
Johnny, where can you pick it up? I know the setup for qualifying is usually different than the setup for the race. Do you feel better about the race than you do qualifying?
Right now, we do. I mean, there's no doubt about that. We kind of, as much as we were trying on a qualifying deal, we went more toward the race setup, and we picked up a little bit. So, I don't know. I mean, that must be just I like the car more that way. So we'll just have to see and see what happens. And, you know, we've had a good run here in the fall last year this race, so we're just to see if we can do that again.
All right, well, the track drying continues, and it looks pretty good down here on pit road and on the front stretch, Rick Benjamin.
Should be just a few moments away from seeing these Winston Cup drivers buckle in. Phil Parsons, Johnny Benson, one of the drivers being much talked about for next year, perhaps moving to a different ride. It's that time of the year already.
Well, it really is, and it seems like it gets earlier each and every year. But I tell you, Johnny's done an excellent job in that Chuck Ryder car. As he mentioned, he had an extremely good run here last fall. I remember he came here for his first time last June and really didn't run very well. Was probably one of the worst cars here. And then he came back in the fall 1 month later, actually in the summer, and was the best car here, or one of the best cars here. So I think he had a top 5 finish, if I'm not mistaken. So he really did improve, and I think you know, he's a little bit off right now in practice, but I think they're looking, as he said, more towards the race, and come Sunday he should be in pretty good shape.
Tough to make the field, though, at a place like Pocono. As we said, 45 cars are here to try to qualify. A couple of drivers probably will not be in the lineup come Sunday. We'll find out how they'll stack up when we return to Pocono Raceway. An artist's rendering of what happened here a little earlier today. Sterling Marlin in the Kodak Film Chevrolet ran into some problems. Phil Parsons got into the wall as well earlier. We're going to show you what happened in practice this morning. Winston Cup cars just arriving at the track today, getting ready for Sunday's Pennsylvania 500. There's the 4 coming in on the hook. Some front-end damage, and pretty serious front-end damage to that car.
Yes, it is. That happened over in Turn 3, unlike Jeff Burton's accident, which happened in Turn 1. But I'd heard some of the crew guys talking. The Sterling said the thing just got away from him and swapped ends and then hit the wall pretty square. So I'm sure Sterling's bruised up a little bit, but Matt Yoakum's with him. We'll see what he has to say.
Well, Phil, they've gone to a backup car. And Sterling, what happened today?
We just got a little loose in 3. It was making a bonsai run and went through 1 real good and made it through 2 real good. Didn't quite make 3. Got in good, and all of a sudden the car just, before it could do anything, turned sideways and it looped around in front and hit the wall. So this car here, we ran at Indy, and it run pretty good for us. Practiced with it, so we'll give it a shot and see what happens.
Boy, it's been kind of a double-edged sword here today. You also lost a motor early on, then you had to go to a backup car when you crashed. It's been kind of a tough day.
Well, we still had the motor in the car. Every time we'd come in, we'd have to take a number 8 plug out and pump water out the cylinder and fill up. So to go out and run, so we was having all kind of trouble, and then spun out and got in the fence. So maybe to get better, it's got to.
Well, they're hoping they've got all their trouble behind them today. His best career finish of 4th here at Pocono. He hopes that all the bad luck is now out the window, and they'll get a good run on qualifying. Rick?
Another team that has certainly had its problems this year, and Phil, we were talking a moment ago, we talked to Joe Nemechek, who's qualified well of late, doesn't have a top 10 this year. You raced the Winston Cup for a long time, you're a regular on the Busch Series. How hard is it to take that qualifying success and transfer it into a long race like this?
Well, it's very hard. Joe Nemechek had an excellent run going last week at New Hampshire and had a little bit of trouble towards the end of the race. It looked like he had a good, strong top 5 going. So I think once you have that speed, though, like Joe Nemechek has, I think it's just a matter of time before they put it all together. Again, like they did last week, they just couldn't put it together for the entire race. But I think you'll see them. They're running up front more and more each and every week. So I don't think it'll be long till you see them with some good finishes to go for their efforts.
And now Joe's working with Tony Glover. Their communication seems to have improved a lot over the last several weeks.
Well, it really has. It almost seemed like once they got together with Joe and Tony, that combination pretty well clicked right away. And I know they had a little trouble at Talladega the first time out, but after that they've been qualifying extremely well and running better and better each and every week.
We continue to wait for the track to be finally dry here at Pocono Raceway. Live coverage of pole qualifying for the NASCAR Winston Cup Tour coming up in just a couple of moments for you right here. One driver back in the series now, jumping into a different machine. He's still with a Ford, though, standing by with our Steve Burns.
And it's great to see Bobby Hillin back. Bobby in the news this week in the 78 car. Bobby, tell us about your plans.
Well, myself and Haynes Racing has agreed to run 5 races together. We just feel like if we run 5 races together, we can kind of feel each other out and see if it's something we want to do to finish out the year. I need to keep racing. I'm working on a lot of things for next year, a lot of positive things. Haynes Racing is really positive. They're really working hard to try to up their program, and they've got some good people, great engine program with Larry Wallace, and they've got a lot going for them, so we're just going to kind of feel it out and see how it goes.
All right, great to see Bobby Hillin back. Started the year in the 77 car, Rick.
And he's jumping into the car that Billy Standridge was released from early in the week. And Bobby Hillin with 1 career Winston Cup victory and some good runs over the years.
Well, he really has. That's the thing. I mean, Bobby got out of the 77 car. He had driven the car a couple, 3 years, and Morgan Shepherd got in the car. But there's not that much magic in a driver change. Morgan, has not run really any better than Bobby has. So it's just a matter of, and maybe they'll get their act together with a 77 car. But as I tell people, there aren't any Houdinis out there.
Yeah.
It's just it's a matter of getting the right chemistry, getting a good strong cars, good strong engines, and putting it all together. So, and you have to work at it. And the guys that run up front have worked at it extremely hard.
Working very hard right at the moment. The crew of Dave Marcus Motorsports. There you see the Realtree Chevrolet. Dave was the 3rd car to get in trouble in practice. Hit the wall pretty hard, and they're trying to get that car put together so Dave can make a qualifying attempt when we come back to Pocono. Back live at Pocono Raceway in Pennsylvania. Pole qualifying for the NASCAR Winston Cup Series, the Pennsylvania 500 Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock. A little bit of a rainstorm just before we were ready to begin at 3 o'clock this afternoon Eastern Time. And that has put things on hold for a brief time. But Phil Parsons, it looks like this track is just about dry all the way around. We ought to be ready to run in a moment. One of the drivers we talked about who had some problems earlier today in practice, Dave Marcus in the Realtree Chevrolet, the 71. We're going to show you the aftermath. They've got on the wall, I guess, coming out of 3 here.
Yeah, it looked like the car maybe swapped ends and it banged the driver's side pretty hard. I talked to some of the guys down there. They thought they may have banged some ribs up. But it looks like there's enough damage there. There you see a shot of the car that I'm sure they're going to have to get a backup car out, and hopefully Dave is going to be sore now, but hopefully by Sunday he'll be in pretty good shape.
Let's hope so. We love to see Dave Marcus in the field. He'll be trying to qualify for his 35th Winston Cup event here in Pennsylvania at Long Pond at Pocono Raceway. And Dave Marcus, way back in 1974, the first time they ran Winston Cup cars here, had a 6th place finish. Let's go back down to pit road.
And Rick, we're with Ken Schrader. He was on the pole last week at Loudon, finished 11th. What about this week, Ken? How'd you guys practice?
Well, we were like 17th in practice. We just haven't really been running like we want to, but hopefully we'll just pull out something here, get us a decent starting spot, and then start worrying about race setup tomorrow.
Ken, is it a complicated procedure to get the car right here? I mean, you guys struggle so hard to be near the front. You keep working and working. How hard is it?
Well, it's hard here. You know, I've been on the pole here 5 times, but we missed it here last June or a month ago and just couldn't quite get it right all day. Now, we're better than we were then, but we're still not where we need to be. So, yeah, you got 3 turns that are totally different, and you just got to come up with a compromise to get through all of them.
All right, Ken, best of luck. Let's go back upstairs.
Ken Schrader's made 19 career starts, 19 career poles, actually, and 5 of those poles have come here at Pocono. A couple of times he's come home second here back in 1988 and again in 1993. Kenny Schrader looking for his first win since 1991. Maybe it'll come on Sunday. We'll find out where the 33 car will line up Sunday. We're about 10 minutes away, we're told, from going to pole qualifying. Back with more at Pocono Raceway in a moment. Back live at Pocono Raceway in Pennsylvania. Rick Benjamin and Phil Parsons, Matt Yoakum and Steve Burns with you today on Fox Sports Net. Pole qualifying coming up in a couple of moments for the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. Phil, you were talking about that crowd earlier. Look at that. They're telling us 40,000 people. That's a state police estimate here today on a Friday in the middle of Pennsylvania for pole qualifying.
That's just incredible. I can remember races here coming, not since I've been driving, but before when I was part of a pit crew, that there were less people here for the race than there are here for qualifying.
In fact, we've got a note here that in 1974 they called the attendance for the Winston Cup race 39,000. Who would ever have thought that about 23 years later, you'd see a bigger crowd than that for pole qualifying? Well, the driver who was the hottest in the business in the first half of 1997, a little bit of a slump here to begin the second half of the season, standing by with our Steve Burns.
And Rick, Jeff Gordon going to bounce back from a tough weekend last week at Loudon. You guys on the practice sheets are 3rd.
Well, you know, we got to qualify good. I mean, we qualified bad at Loudon, and it really hurt us. And we're going to bounce back here and hopefully get a good qualifying run. This weather hasn't helped us too much. We didn't draw a very good number. We drew an early number, but we got a fast car. And we're going to go out there and get every bit out of it, hopefully.
Jeff, when you have a week, you guys have had such a great year. When you have a week like you did last week, does it make you want to work that much harder? Does it make you want to get to the next race that much quicker?
Well, the great thing about this team is that, you know, they're very capable of bouncing back real quick. But at the same time, we expect a lot out of ourselves, and to have 2 tough weekends like we've had the last couple, you know, it can affect us just as much as it can a team that's not winning races. So, you know, we've got to make sure that doesn't happen. The way you do that is come to Pocono and run well.
Jeff, I heard Jeff Burton say earlier today he doesn't even want to answer questions about the points race. He just wants to show up, lead races, win races if he can. What is your strategy, your team, as far as the points race is concerned?
Well, we've been in the championship battle, you know, a couple times now, and you kind of get used to talking about points and talking about the championship. The year we won it, we didn't want to talk about it because we'd never been in a championship battle. But this year, you know, it's going to be what it's going to be. You just work as hard as you can and try to get down to, you know, the end of the season. I feel like it's going to come all the way down to Atlanta. I mean, it seems like every time we get on a string of runs and get some points going, consistency going, bang, something happens. You know, we just got to bounce back from that.
Okay, best of luck, Jeff. Thank you.
Jeff Gordon's had 2 consecutive difficult weeks. They got into the wall at Daytona, finished out of the top 22 weeks in a row, but very strong here. He's won the last 2 June races at Pocono Raceway. Getting ready to roll them out. The drivers have been called to their cars. We should be set to go with pole qualifying in a couple of moments. Welcome back live to Pocono Raceway in Pennsylvania. Rick Benjamin, Phil Parsons, Matt Yoakum, and Steve Burns with you for Pole Day. Pennsylvania 500 comes up here Sunday on Fox Sports Net. We've got pole qualifying coming up in a couple of moments. Driver who is celebrating his silver anniversary season in Winston Cup racing. He had a good qualifying effort here back in the month of June. Standing by with Matt Yoakum.
Well, Rick, we were back here in June. DW, you're running up front there at ease. Are we going to see that again this time?
Which should be as good. The same car, and it's a little harder this time, you know, a little bit slicker. We've had to make a few minor changes, but the car drives great. Runs just like it did last time here. So let's see how it goes.
He got his last win here. 4 wins here at Pocono. Steve?
Matt with Jerry Nadeau, and get used to seeing this face, folks, because he's got a bright future. Started this season as the spotter for Morgan Shepherd. Now he's driving the #1 car. Qualified in the top 10 last week at Loudon. Jerry, what about Pocono? You haven't been to many of these tracks yet.
No, I tell you, this has been a tough year. It's been interesting so far the past 4 races. I've never tested one of these cars before. Pocono's a hard racetrack. I've talked to a lot of guys here, and it's not easy. There's actually 3 different turns here. You've got a lot of bank in turn 1, very little bank in turn 2, and turn 3 is flat. So, I mean, you got to have a good handle on the car. Biggest thing here for me is it was hard for me to get a lot of lap time because there was a lot of cars out there, a lot of guys doing plug checks and getting their 2-lap, or actually their 1-lap qualifying setup ready to go. But I feel pretty good. I mean, RL carriers Pontiac, and the team's working real good. We were 3 seconds off, then we were 2 seconds off. Now we're about a second off, barely a second off. And I think we'll have a good, hopefully we can have a good lap in qualifying.
Well, this is a tough track to get around for rookies or veterans. Speaking of veterans, I understand DW's not done talking, Matt.
Well, Steve, he's kind of complaining you were taking a lot of his airtime there. I mean, Burns said he wanted me to throw it to him, DW. I had to do it.
Man, we're standing here. I'm getting ready to tell you how good I'm going to run and how great my car is and talk about my TV show tomorrow night, and you just walk off.
That was Steve Burns. See, I said, hey, DW's my man. I really wanted to talk to him. I said, I want to go over here and sit down on the wall and talk to him so long.
Who's producing this show anyway? I mean, I got to have my TV time, man. We're going to have a big show tomorrow night, and I want all the people to be sure and tune in and watch it. We're going to slip around here after practice and talk about happy hour. Now, that ought to interest a lot of people, not only race fans, but there's probably some guy driving down the interstate right now saying, oh, happy hour, yeah, I think I'll tune in.
Hey, well, I talked to the driver a little earlier. I need to talk to the car owner of the Western Auto Parts America Plus Chevy. How's that car doing, and how's your driver doing this weekend?
That boy, good car, good car. We got good car. We won't drive. We're looking for a driver. We're looking for a good driver, Ben Parson.
Well, he's looking for a driver, Rick. Do you happen to have a resume or any resumes standing by? You can probably send him over.
No, I don't want no driver with experience. I want a driver with no experience. I'm going to teach him how to drive.
You want to put a lot of yellow tape and probably a lot of sheet metal on those cars, huh?
Don't want no resume. Resume is the worst thing you can have. Ask Benny.
He doesn't want any resumes, Rick Benjamin.
Well, that's good. I would fit that bill, I guess, but my partner here, Phil Parsons, has got a ton of experience. Darrell Waltrip talking about expanding, going to a second team. The two-car concept helps a lot of these guys in terms of testing and development and so forth. How difficult is it to develop a new driver these days?
Well, it all depends. Jeff Gordon came in, and he had some trouble his first year, really the first 2/3 of his first year. Had some good finishes, but tore up a lot of equipment. But he found that edge. He found where the edge of the envelope was, and he came back the next year and ran extremely well. Has been running well ever since, obviously. Jerry Nadeau has impressed me, the fact that he come in with very, very little experience in stock cars. He's qualified for the races and run halfway decent. He'll just get better with time. But it's extremely difficult. I think Darrell Waltrip has picked a real good race car driver in Rich Bickle. I know they're going to run Indy in a couple weeks and maybe run a handful of races this year in preparation for next year. But Rich has been in the Winston Cup Series on and off for the last few years and done a good job with the equipment he's been in. So I think he'll be a good addition to Darrell Waltrip's team. But Darrell's not ready to give up yet either. And Darrell showed here last June he really ran awfully well at Sears Point and some other races this year, in which I was really glad to see. As we talked earlier, if you've got the equipment, there are a lot of guys out here that can get the job done.
One guy who's showing a lot of ability to get the job done in his first year, stepping into the Diamond Ridge Chevrolet partway through the season, standing by with Steve Burns.
And Rick, on the practice sheets, Jeff Green, one of the quickest cars this morning, 5th overall. Jeff, can you run that fast in qualifying, if not faster?
Hopefully run a little faster, Steve. Really, we made our run, and I gooped up a couple of spots, so if the driver does his job, I think we can take care of those spots, and hopefully we can be a little better qualifying. Our Cartoon Network Chevy's running good, but we want to make it in the top 25 where we can practice in the morning. I like this track a lot, and I think we got a good car for here.
Jeff, you guys were off just a little bit last week at Loudon, but looks like you picked up the pace here.
You're so kind, a little bit. We was off a lot last week, but again, we had the same car we had here earlier in the year, and we led some laps here, led halfway. We just want to see the end this time. We had a motor problem last time, but got a good Hendrick motor in that thing right now, and we're looking forward to qualifying.
Well, Rick, they had a top 10 finish at California, trying to make their second one here at Pocono.
But it shows you the ups and downs, Phil Parsons, of this sport. They went 7th at California, came back and didn't make the show at Daytona. So you can be great one week and really struggle the next.
Well, you sure can. But this is one place that Jeff Green has a lot of experience at. He ran both races last year in Dale Earnhardt's own Winston Cup cars. So as he mentioned, he ran well here in June. So Jeff Green has probably more experience on this racetrack in a Winston Cup car than he does any others. So I look for Jeff to run well here.
And taking a serious tack on what DW said a few moments ago, normally when he's being serious, he talks about how you need a lot of experience in this sport. You've been at it a long time. What do you think? Can he come in here and be a flash in the pan, be great right off the start, or does it take you 5 years to learn your way around?
I think it takes a while. I mean, it even took Jeff Gordon, a year, a little bit over a year. But Bobby Labonte came in and was fairly competitive early on. But those guys are pretty few and far between. It takes a while. Even you can run Busch for years. You look at Steve Park, for instance. He's run extremely well this year. Been very impressive on the Busch series, but and tested well here. I was talking to Don Hawk, who works with Dale Earnhardt. They tested here about a second faster than they're running right now. So just the different nuances of the track and the weather. I mean, he was only here 2 weeks ago, and the track has changed that much in the last 2 weeks. So he's now a second off what he's tested at. Now, give him time, they'll get that back because it's obvious that he can run that fast or a second faster than he's running. So give him a little time and he'll get it back. But unfortunately, you don't have a whole lot of time when you come back here. You have a set amount of practice. You have a couple attempts to qualify, and then you got to be racing.
And the whole field may qualify within less than 0.2 of a second, so there's not much margin for error when you're out there for 2 laps. Just about ready to go with pole qualifying at Pocono Raceway on Fox Sports Net. We'll come right back to Pennsylvania in a moment. Back live at Pocono Raceway in Pennsylvania. Rick Benjamin, Phil Parsons, Matt Yoakum, and Steve Burns with you on Fox Sports Net today. We waited out a brief rain delay. The track just about dry, and we understand we should be ready to roll the first car out for qualifying for the Pennsylvania 500 in a couple of moments. Driver who perennially wins most popular among the Winston Cup drivers, also qualified nicely here. 5th starting spot back in June, standing by with Matt Yoakum.
Well, Rick, he's the most popular driver, and Bill Elliott, second fastest today. Seems like you found that old Pocono magic.
Not really. I mean, we'll know here when qualifying's over with, but man, I'll tell you what, I've about figured out qualifying is one thing, but race is something else. And we'll just have to wait and see where we end up. Those practice times, you can just forget about them because it's all down to it right here.
Well, he was second fastest in practice. His best finish this season is second. They are on the verge of getting back to victory lane. Steve?
Matt, we talked about how the fans have been lined up here along the pit wall. Now they're getting a prized autograph from Dale Jarrett. Dale, how'd you guys run today? The practice sheet says you're 14th. Are you better or worse?
We're not any better unless we made some adjustments that'll make it better. We struggled a little bit with it, but we're not bad. I mean, the same car we had here a few weeks ago, and I think when we get to the race, we'll be okay. But one lap wasn't our special. Even though we qualified second here last time, I think we snuck up on a lot of people and surprised ourselves. So, the car is going to be pretty good come Sunday.
All right, Dale, we'll let you get back to signing that autograph.
Thanks a lot.
Dale Jarrett started on the outside pole here back in the month of June. Won this race 2 years ago when he was filling in for Ernie Irvin in the Texaco Haviland Thunderbird, the other Yates machine, the 28. Would you ever have thought that it would have been so many years between wins for Bill Elliott?
No, I really wouldn't have. He won so many races in a relatively short period of time. But, they've gone through a lot of changes. It's extremely difficult to start your own team like Bill has done. I mean, I know that.
You're a team owner, yeah.
We did that with our Channel Lock Chevy, with our Busch car, but they are on the verge. They run extremely well. I thought they had the best car at Daytona in February, but they got ganged up on by the 3 Hendrick cars. But they've been really good, in several races this year. And again, June he was awfully good, and he's running well here. But as Bill said, qualifying is one thing, and these computer printouts that we look at are nice, but they really don't tell the whole story. You look at them, a lot of people look at them in the last practice and say, well, you were the fastest car in the last practice. Well, yeah, but I put new tires on. Everyone else was running on old tires. So you have to take these, you have to interpret them and whatnot. But, qualifying is one thing and racing is another thing. Now, people like Bill Elliott, they don't worry as much about qualifying probably as they do the race because they know they're guaranteed. They're up high enough in points. In Bill's case, a past champion, he knows he has that to fall back on. He's in the show no matter what. Yeah. But not to say that you don't want to qualify well. As Jeff Gordon alluded to earlier, they ran into problems at Loudon because he felt like they didn't qualify as well as they should have. So it is important. It's something that we put a lot of emphasis on in our Busch car, and all these guys put an awful lot of emphasis on it too, or else they wouldn't be changing engines after qualifying. They run a qualifying engine almost exclusively, and after the morning practice, they usually back the car in, change the engine. So if it wasn't important, they wouldn't go through that trouble.
Bill Elliott has gone 80 races now. We talked about Dale Earnhardt's streak at 45 and counting. Elliott's at 80 races since his last one at Darlington in 1994. I think the driver who had the best car here back in June of all didn't finish the race. Standing by with our Steve Burns is Ward Burton.
Hey, Rick, these fans are getting their money's worth. Ward is trailing Dale Jarrett, drafting, if you will, along the autograph wall here. Ward, as we said moments ago, you guys had a great car here a month ago.
Yeah, we really did. Shame we didn't capitalize on it, but everything that whole week went real positive. We just didn't get to finish the race.
What do you got today, Ward?
We've got a struggling problem of some kind with getting up to speed. I really don't understand. The car feels as good as it did down here before. We're just not running the lap times. Last time out was the fastest we run, so we've tried a few things with ignition and all. Maybe we'll find what we've been missing, but I think regardless of what we do today, we'll run good Sunday.
All right, our first car is on the track. Let's go back upstairs.
Rusty Wallace first in line to come out to qualify in the Miller Lite Ford. 410 career starts for Rusty, nearly 50 wins. Rusty Wallace very strong here at Pocono, always coming around to take the green. First 2 laps under the clocks here this afternoon. This is a team that's had its problems as well this year.
Well, they've been hot and cold. They've run extremely well in a lot of races, but they've had a lot of DNFs, which is fairly uncharacteristic for Rusty. But you can never count Rusty out of a place like Pocono.
Wallace down to take the green flag down the longest main straightaway in Winston Cup racing, heading toward that first turn. And if you've never been to Pocono or maybe don't recall from watching a race here, talk about the 3 turns that are so different here.
Well, one thing that's really different about Pocono is we may not be able to hear it, and for some of the fans that are new to NASCAR and new to this racetrack, you actually shift one time, or actually 2 shifts at this racetrack. Some guys even shift more than that. You'll see Rusty right now, he'll be in 3rd gear. He goes to, this is a tunnel turn, turn 2, which is probably one of the most difficult turns in all of racing right here. You look straight into the wall as you go into the corner. Then you come to a real flat turn 3, real important to keep the car in the bottom of the racetrack. Try to keep the RPMs up to get you propelled off that last corner for the front straightaway. Right now he's in 3rd gear. He'll shift to 4th gear right around the start-finish line, maybe a little bit before, maybe a little bit after. Since he's qualifying, he may not even shift, or he'll put it in high gear after he backs off just to coast down into turn 1.
Rusty's lap will get the time for you, a 54.480, 165.198 miles an hour for the driver of the Miller Lite Ford. That's a couple of miles an hour off the quickest practice speeds. A couple of cars able to practice in the 168 range here earlier today, but after the rain and the jet dryer, as we've talked about this afternoon, hard to say exactly what will happen. Next car heading out in line, the 33 machine, and we'll get his Kenny Schrader, the Skull Bandit Chevrolet, motoring through turn 1. As we told you, he's had a lot of success in qualifying here. 5 pole positions at this track over here.
Kenny Schrader's a good qualifier about anywhere. This is one of his better racetracks. I know he ran a lap here one time that I was running that we just couldn't believe how fast he went. That was a little bit slower than Rusty had run in practice. So, as he said, he didn't know whether to be happy or worried about qualifying, and it looked like it slowed him down just a little bit. So, but the track should get better. We get a little bit more rubber down in the groove, and again, the cars don't vary 3 or 4 feet from where they're all going to run while they qualify. So hopefully the track will pick up, and as a lot of guys alluded to, they feel like the advantage is going to be to go late.
Take the green flag, Kenny Schrader and Andy Petrie's Chevrolet, and the team that really is hungry for victory. You've heard that it's been now going on 6 years for Schrader since he was last in a Winston Cup victory lane, and the Andy Petrie Skull Bandit team certainly needs a win as well, but they're getting closer. They've had a 6th and an 11th the last couple of weeks, so they're very strong.
They had a pole at Loudon, I believe. I'll tell you, the camera shot we're looking at coming down the front stretch is really deceiving because you're actually running about 200 miles an hour in high gear. You gear down going in the corner. Some guys downshift going in the corner. Some guys shift into 3rd just as they're getting ready to get back in the throttle. But you stand on the brakes with both feet to try to get slowed down to get into turn 1, and then you want to stay right on the bottom of the racetrack. I was talking to Brett Bodine earlier, and he said if you vary off the bottom of the racetrack 2 or 3 feet, then the car will push worse. That may be what happened to Jeff Burton earlier. The car pushed off of turn 1. He may have been a foot or 2 higher.
Schrader coming down to take the checkered flag, complete his qualifying run. Time for you here in just a moment. Next up in line will be Johnny Benson Jr. And we'll see what kind of time Schrader was able to knock off a 53.7. He picks up a couple of miles an hour, 167.5 miles an hour. Schrader quite a bit quicker than Wallace here in the early going. Let's go to pit road, Steve Burns.
And we talked to Mark Martin and Jeff Burton, the third member of the Roush stable, Ted Musgrave. Ted, the times look pretty good in practice this morning.
Yeah, but don't fool yourself. Last time I was about the quickest here in the spring and went to qualify, extended myself a little too fast, and had to go over second round qualifying, so I'm going to try and calm myself down and see if I can get near the front again this time.
Okay, Ted. Let's go back to Matt.
Well, Steve, in practice, Rusty Wallace ran a 54.30 seconds for his fastest lap in practice. As far as qualifying goes, he slowed up a little bit, running a 54.480. Rusty, you slowed up a little bit. Did you think that's what was going to happen, or are you a little surprised?
I'm real surprised. I thought the car would be running maybe a 53.90 or something, because it felt that good, but it slowed way up. I don't know what it was. It was definitely my car. It wasn't the track.
How about the wind? It's a little bit windy now.
Well, I don't think that hurt me. We're just in rough shape right now. We just go back, work on the car, and get her going.
Let's go back upstairs.
Johnny Benson Jr. bringing the Pennzoil Pontiac out of the third turn here at Pocono. And if you have a long memory, you know that USAC brought the championship cars here first for a 500-miler way back in 1971. And they ran 3 years, in fact, before the Winston Cup Series debuted here at Pocono Raceway. And these three turns are patterned after a couple of legendary tracks in IndyCar racing from years ago. Turn 1 patterned after the old Trenton Speedway in New Jersey, which is now closed. Turn 2 is the Indianapolis corner. And Turn 3, if you've been watching any IndyCar competition lately, it's a whole lot like Milwaukee down in Turn 3. Very flat, very wide, very fast for these cars. 2 is the toughest turn, you think so?
I think it is. I think it's one of the most difficult in all of motor racing. You just look straight at a wall when you go down the long front straightaway. You're looking at turn 2 and you're looking straight at the wall, so you have to get on the throttle, turn the thing, and get back on the throttle to make any good time. Johnny looked like he was real wide here. He was. He actually was a little bit wide over in turn 1, so I don't think he's going to be real happy with his qualifying effort here.
Benson taking the checkered flag, completing his qualifying lap today at Pocono Raceway. A 55.44. That's 162.3 miles an hour. The third time on the board so far for the third driver out, so he's quite a bit off the pace. And the way things go a lot of times in Winston Cup qualifying, that probably will mean a second round effort for Benson. Perhaps he'll want to stand on his time. Let's go back to Matt Yoakum standing by with Kenny Schrader.
Well, Kenny, you picked up about 4/10 from practice. Are you happy with that lap?
Well, I'm glad that we got our best lap when we got it, because we hadn't run that good in practice. We needed to pull something out. And, you know, we'll get through this day. I'm guessing it'll probably be around 12th or so. And get ready for Sunday now.
How much has the track changed from before the rain to now?
I don't think it really made much difference. You know, it wasn't a downpour rain for an extended period of time, so just made everything wet, dried it off. Got a little grease off maybe, you know, a little rubber, but a little oil too, so no big difference.
He's got the pole for now. Rick?
He does have the pole for now, but a driver who certainly has aspirations of qualifying up front is on the speedway. Jeff Gordon in the DuPont Chevrolet coming down the short straightaway, heading toward turn 3. Looking for a green flag here momentarily. Gordon with 7 Winston Cup victories on the season and 15 starts to open the year. A couple of out of top 20 finishes, very uncharacteristic the last 2 weeks. Here's Gordon down to take the green flag. Mixed reaction, a lot of noise for Jeff Gordon, but this season, as he has been so dominant, he started to hear a fair measure of booing, as well as all the applause that he generates at the racetrack. That's got to be tough for a driver to do.
Well, it is, but anytime you have as much success, you know, back through history of the sport, I mean, with Dale Earnhardt and Darrell Waltrip, I mean, you know, people get tired of seeing the same guy win all the time, but it's really a tribute to his team and his driving ability. But you know, I'd like to try some of that success and see how I would handle some of the boosts.
Certainly, it's salve for the wounds when you win that nearly $2 million in half a season that Gordon has put in the bank so far. Gordon whistling down the short straightaway, coming towards 3. Looks like he's down nice and low where you want to be here.
He's holding a pretty wheel, as a lot of guys say.
He has been doing that for much of 1997. Second in Winston Cup points. Checkered flag to Gordon. We'll give you his time here as soon as timing and scoring puts it up on the board for us to take a gander at. Gordon, the winner here back in June, goes to the top of the charts, a 53.688. That is about 4/10 quicker than Schrader, 167.63 miles an hour the lap time for Jeff Gordon. So right now he is the quick time of the day. The first 4 cars out on the speedway. A lot more to bring you from Pocono Raceway. Whole qualifying for the Pennsylvania 500, the NASCAR Winston Cup Series on Fox. An opportunity to relax for Dale Jarrett before he goes out to qualify today here at Pocono Raceway. Bobby Hillin just completed his run with a lap of 54.453. That's 165.28 miles an hour. Not a bad qualifying lap for Hillin, his first time out in that Haynes Motorsports Ford. Here's a driver everybody's been thinking about this weekend, Steve Park in the Dale Earnhardt Incorporated Chevrolet. Was perfect again on the side. Park trying to make his first Winston Cup start for Dale Earnhardt Inc. this weekend. What do you think, Phil Parsons? Has he got a good shot to qualify here?
I think he does. He's a real good qualifier. You saw the car wiggle a little bit off the tunnel turn there. The tires are a little bit greasy when you first go out, but by the time he gets over to turn 3, they should be, as good as they're going to be. But I know Steve has struggled a little bit today, but he's a real good qualifier and a real good racer. So hopefully he can put a decent enough lap in the book and make this field.
Whistling out of 3, coming to the stripe, taking the green flag. Let's quickly head to pit road. Matt Yoakum.
Well, Jeff, 167, a little bit slower than your practice time. You think it's going to hold up for the pole?
I don't know if it's going to hold up for the pole, but it's a decent lap, and I'm just wanting to get in the top 10. We drew an early number. The rain came and kind of threw us off of our game plan, but we were really fast at practice. We got a good car, and I think that's a pretty solid lap for when we went out.
Just normal heat to slow the car up, or maybe because of the rain?
Well, it's just the track changed. It's I don't know if it changed for the good or the better or worse, but the track was a little bit tighter on us in 1 than we expected, and I actually got a little loose in 3. So we had just planned to go the way it was, and I think that's a pretty decent lap. I mean, the car feels good. Been fast in practice. Hopefully that'll carry over on to Sunday.
Well, I remember last time we were here, he was victorious, and he's got the same car, blacker, that he had back in June. Rick?
Certainly looking for a strong run from Jeff Gordon come Sunday. Steve Park is 5th quickest so far, but a 55.317. That's 162.699 miles an hour. Phil Parsons, it's got to be disappointing to the Dale Earnhardt crew.
Well, it is. You can see the water coming out of the back of Steve's car there. They put so much tape on these cars to get an aerodynamic advantage because they want the car to cut through the air as fast as it can. The more tape you put on it, the more aerodynamic the car is. But that also creates some heat in the engine. But Steve's going to be disappointed with that time. That will not get him in the top 25. He'll have to go again tomorrow.
Ted Musgrave out on the speedway now in the Roush Racing Ford, the Family Channel Prime Star machine. Musgrave 16 top 5 finishes in his career. A couple of times this year he's been knocking on the door of that first ever victory. The pressure has got to be on Ted Musgrave. Jeff Burton comes along. He wins 2 races in his second year. Musgrave's been with the team 4 or 5 years now. Hasn't done it yet. Is he feeling the heat?
Well, I don't know. He had an awfully good run this year at Darlington. He finished second right on Dale Jarrett's bumper. Just a little nudge, and he'd already been in victory lane actually before Jeff Burton, but he did a class move and didn't take Dale out where he could have easily done that, and nobody really would even said anything. So I think his time's coming. They've been running better and better this year. I think I saw in an interview with him, he said they had tried some things last year that kind of had a little departure from the norm. And they're getting back to the basics right now, and they're running better and better.
We'll see how good Ted Musgrave is running in the Prime Star machine. He's up on the Long Pond straightaway heading toward turn 2 on his qualifying lap. Let's quickly head to pit road. Matt Yoakum.
Well, right before practice and qualifying, a lot of teams talking about whether to go with stickers or scuffs for qualifying. Ray, you went with scuffs, but you were actually a little faster on stickers. Why?
Don't know. The track could be changing a little bit. We normally go on scuffs here. There's a little bit of difference in tire sets, and I'm glad we went on scuffs. We were a little bit tighter than we wanted to be, but we could have got real loose. We got real loose on it when we went through our practice set, and this was the best we'd run on this set of tires, so we chose to do it. I just wish we had run a little bit faster.
Well, they were 4/10 seconds faster on one set of stickers. Going out on stickers today, Mark Martin and Dale Jarrett, as well as a few others. Steve Burns?
With Chad Little. Matt, Chad had a great qualifying run last week at Loudon in the top 5. Chad, how about today?
I tell you, if we ended up that good today, it really would be a great one because our practice times aren't quite what they were last week. We're missing some speed somewhere. We don't know exactly where it is. The car feels good, but the times aren't all that great. So right now we've kind of sat back and focusing in on trying to get that top 25.
Okay, have a good run.
Thank you.
Chad Little in the John Deere Pontiac, ready to head out. Dick Trickle on the Speedway now in the Heilig Myers Ford from the Judy Donlevy shops. And we found out last week, Phil, when we were all, as we talked about Ted Musgrave, who came in third quickest. You saw the graphic there on the screen a few moments ago. Musgrave with a lap of 166.236. Trickle with his first ever Busch Series win earlier this year at Hickory. He was dinged up a little bit at Daytona in that last lap scramble.
He really was. He hit real hard there. They had a last lap shootout. They gave basically the green and white, 1 lap to go, and they 3 or 4 of them tried to get down in turn 3 at the same time. But several cars hit real hard. And the thing is, you try to get to the line, and you're a quarter of a mile away from the finish, and Dick Trickle looked like he was headed to a top 5 finish, or at least awfully good strong top 10, and didn't quite make it there. But we'd love to see Junie Dunleavy have a good run here. Trickle has got around this racetrack well in the past, and Junie Dunleavy is one of the nicest people in this sport, and it's nice to see him have some success.
Sure is, and a lot of folks pulling for Dick Trickle too from Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin, the great short track standout of many years standing, and it was a big milestone in his career at age 55. And he picked up that Busch Grand National win earlier this year that you saw at Hickory Motor Speedway in North Carolina. Trickle trying for his first career Winston Cup win in 39 previous Cup races here. No driver has ever broken through for the first time at this track, so maybe the odds are in his favor this weekend. Maybe it's time for somebody to pick up that first ever win. Trickle coming out of turn 3, coming to the checkered flag to complete his qualifying run. Next up on the speedway will be Dale Jarrett, the driver certainly with a shot at the pole. We'll get you Dick Trickle's time here as soon as it becomes available, as he comes across. We see a lot of drivers coming off 3 high, and you'd think normally they'd want to stay there, but the pattern here seems to be to try to come back toward the center of the track as you come down the main straight.
Yeah, I'm really not sure what the advantage of that is, because like Michigan, the track has a curve in the front straightaway, so you can actually shorten the racetrack up a little bit by doing that. But I think it may be just psychosomatic or something, because I'm not sure it does anything here at Pocono.
Trickle 6th quick on the afternoon, 164.699 miles an hour, his lap speed. Dale Jarrett coming up onto the speedway now in the Ford Quality Care machine, the Ford Credit Thunderbird from Robert Yates Racing. Won this race 2 years ago in the team car, the Texaco Haviland Thunderbird. Ernie Irvin will be out to qualify that car a little bit later on. Dale Jarrett with a couple of wins on the season, back-to-back at Atlanta and Darlington earlier in the year, and they've been strong. They've been in position to win, 3 or 4 other races this year when they've had late race problems.
Well, they really have. They actually could have won the first 4 races of the year. They had a real good car at Daytona, got involved in that accident with Dale Earnhardt, had an awfully good car at Richmond. Jeff Gordon was just a little bit better on the last run. They had a real good car at Richmond, and Rusty Wallace beat Dale on a restart, maybe the last restart, so they actually could have run 4 or 5 races to start the year.
DJ very much in contention for the championship, coming to the green flag to qualify at Pocono. Let's head back to pit road. Steve Burns.
Rick, we're standing by with Ricky Craven, watching Dale Jarrett come down the front stretch. Ricky, how about you guys? What do you have today?
Hard to say. We swapped engines with an hour left in practice, and so it's kind of left us curious, to say the least, on what we have, but just run hard.
This is a tough place to be curious.
It is. You're curious when you get here, and you hope to solve some of that problem, but I really enjoy it. Three corners that are completely different, and the straightaway big enough to land an airplane to boot, so it's got everything. It's got a mix of everything, but we'll be going out in 5 to 10 minutes. Hopefully run a good lap.
Thanks, Rick.
Ricky Craven hoping for his first career Winston Cup victory sometime this season in the Budweiser Chevrolet out of the Hendrick shops. Here's Dale Jarrett out of turn 3, coming to the stripe to take the checkered flag and wrap up his qualifying run. A driver certainly has potential to be the fast time of the afternoon here. We'll get the time from Dale Jarrett for you in a couple of moments. That team has become so strong in the last 2 years. We talked earlier, Phil, about teamwork between the driver and crew chief. There's Dale Jarrett at the top of the charts with Todd Parrott as his top wrench. 167.763 miles an hour, a lap of 53.647. They've got it all working today.
They sure do. That just goes to show that the racetracks, Dale said that they surprised themselves back in June. They may have surprised themselves again here.
Dale Jarrett is the provisional pole sitter. We've only run 9 cars, though. We've got 36 remaining to take time. There's your top 5 as it stands. Back with more at Pocono in a moment. Back live at Pocono Raceway, Long Pond, Pennsylvania on Fox Sports Net today. Pole qualifying for Sunday's Pennsylvania 500 in the Winston Cup Series. Dale Jarrett just setting quick time of the day, much quicker than he practiced. Ollie Dallenbach Jr. coming down to take the checkered flag. Sabco Chevrolet, the 46, the first Union machine. We'll see what kind of time Wally was able to put on the board. Another team that's been doing better and better, and look at that, even quicker, 168.108 miles an hour, a 53.5 for Wally Dallenbach. That aces out Dale Jarrett for the pole at this point. Let's find out Dale's thoughts.
Well, Dale, you're on the pole for about one position there. Still a good lap for you. Picked up half a second from practice.
We picked up, yeah, but we normally do. I mean, we don't normally do everything to the car until it's time to go, and the guys did a terrific job, and the car was pretty good everywhere. You know, just got kind of hot, and it was a little bit slick out there. Not a lot of rubber down at this time, but we'll take that.
Let's go to Steve Burns.
Matt with Bobby Hamilton. Bobby, every time I talked to Robbie Loomis and your crew last week, they thought they had the winning race car. You had a problem. How about this week?
We got the same car. You know, last week we had a flat and it knocked the sway bar off it, and we couldn't get along with enough caution to fix it. This car's got a good reputation of running good on the flat tracks, and it's been pretty quick today. It's a little more dragger than the car we set on the pole with here in the spring race, but it's actually making better corner speed. So we figured it would qualify decent, ought to race real good.
Hey, Phil Parsons, that's a term I haven't heard lately, draggier. What's that?
I think that means he's got wider fenders and things like that. The car, as we talked earlier, how we put a lot of tape on the cars to make them go through the air. Well, you build a short track, you try to build more, a short track car, you build more downforce into it. You have bigger fenders, flatter on the tops of the fenders and things like that. So I'm sure that's what Bobby's talking about. It's a short track car with bigger fenders, flatter fenders, and won't go through the air quite as well as an intermediate type car. But as he said, when it comes to racing, you get a little bit of draft going. The car really ought to go well in the corners, and that should help him come race time.
Bobby Hamilton qualified second here at Pocono in June, led early and had cut tire problems there too. Another race he might well have had the quickest car at. Let's find out a little more. Wally Dallenbach very quick as we watch David Green come to the checkered flag. He's standing by with Matt Yoakum.
Rick, 4 times this season, a Sabco car has been on the front row, and Wally, you're on the pole right now. Good run for you.
Thank you. Real good effort for First Union, the team. This is the same car we ran fast at Indianapolis, so they can come over and look and see we got the right tires. And, you know, I don't know if that'll stick. We got Front Row Joe going late here, so he's guy I'm worried about.
Yeah, you got to watch out for Front Row Joe and the other car, the 40 of Robbie Gordon.
David Green completes his lap, 6th quickest so far, a 54.428. That's good for 165.356 miles an hour. So David Green in Buster Paul's Caterpillar Chevrolet clocking 6th on the charts at this point. Another first-year team that has struggled in the first half of the season. Here's a guy a lot of folks want to see run, one of the favorites everywhere we go. Mark Martin bringing the Roush Ford, the Valvoline Thunderbird up on the speedway.
You can never count Mark Martin out in qualifying. Mark is one of the best qualifiers to ever really come down the pike. And you know, he had a good time in practice. He ran a 53.82, which computed to 167.2 miles per hour. And he did that on stickers. And we talked earlier, one of the guys down in the pits told us that Mark Martin and Dale Jarrett were both going on stickers. Dale Jarrett picked up a half a second from what he had practiced. So if Mark can pick up a half a second, then he's going to be on the pole.
A couple of poles already this year for Mark Martin, so he is solidly in the Busch Clash for 1998. Pole sitter at Rockingham back in week 2 of the season. Also on the Sears Point Road Course in California, where he picked up his first win of the season. Backed that up with a victory at Talladega the following Saturday. Martin had gone about a year and a half between race wins. That 2-race win streak much welcomed by Mark Martin, the driver from Batesville, Arkansas. He was the pole sitter here and set an event qualifying record 1 year ago in July of 1996. So Mark out of 1 up onto the Long Pond straightaway, heading toward that tunnel turn. He's such a good road racer. A lot of folks talk about this being like a road course. Is that an advantage for Mark Martin?
Well, I think so, and also for Wally Dallenbach, the pole sitter right now. Wally's an excellent road racer. That's the background he came from, and he always seemed to run well here. Wally did, no matter when he first started coming here in Winston Cup car, he always ran well because it is what we used to call it was a road course without shifting. But now we actually throw a little bit of that in there too. So it is an awful lot like a road course, more so than any other racetrack that Winston Cup cars run, other than the road course.
2.5 mile super speedway though here at Pocono Raceway. Checkered flag from Mark Martin. We'll get his time for you in just a moment. Mark Martin 5th quick so far, a lap of 53.747 seconds from 160. 57.451 miles an hour. Now only down the back remains the quickest car so far. Dale Jarrett, Jeff Gordon, Kenny Schrader, and Mark Martin now your top 5. Let's head back to pit road. Steve Burns.
I tell you, these fans are just mopping up with autographs. Steve Grissom finished in the top 5 last week. Steve, how are you guys running here?
Don't seem to be too bad. The car's been pretty good for us in practice. Main thing we got to do right now is just get us in a good lap here. Hopefully get in today and get in here in the morning and get working on a race setup.
Steve, all the drivers, almost to a man, talk about how tough a racetrack this is to negotiate.
Well, it is. You got 3 complete different type of corners here, and you know, with that, it's hard to get the car to work just right in all 3 corners. So with that, you kind of have a little trade-off there and get the car as best you can in a certain area, and then be better in other areas. So it's a fun racetrack, without a doubt.
And I think most impressive is how Steve Grissom and the rest of these guys can talk and sign autographs at the same time.
Special technique that you learn at famous driver school, isn't that the case?
I guess so. I guess by repetition.
Well, he's certainly getting lots of practice. Steve Grissom with a 4th last week at Loudon, his best career finish, his first top 10 and top 5 here in 1997. DW up on the Speedway, 3 times the pole sitter here at Pocono in 1977, 20 years ago, then 1981 and 83. But he's not done yet by any stretch of the imagination. As we talked earlier, he had a great run going here back in June.
He really did. I've been really happy to see Darrell run well this year like he has on a lot of occasions. Again, I think Sunday will be another occasion that Darrell will run well because he said he had the same car, basically the same setup with a little bit of fine-tuning. So I look for Darrell to be real strong on Sunday.
And a 5th back at Sears Point. That was the race that I think everybody put their attention on. Darrell Waltrip starting to get things back together. And then a 7th here at Pocono in the month of June. As we see the fastest cars from each brand. Wally Dowlemack, the best of the Chevrolets so far. DJ with the quickest Ford, and Johnny Benson Jr. the fastest of the Pontiacs. But I think he's one of only 2 Pontiacs to go out and qualify so far. Bobby Hamilton still to run in the STP Pontiac. So here's Darrell Waltrip coming out of turn 3, coming to the checkered flag today. Pole qualifying at Pocono delayed briefly by a quick rain shower, but dried off. Rain stopped in a very short time. Track dried quickly, and we're underway, and we're glad you're with us, and we'll show you where Darrell Waltrip fits in the scheme of things here. 12 cars. Darrell's the 13th car to come out and take time here on this Friday afternoon. As he moved down into turn 1. You talked about the water that was coming out of the back end of Steve Park's machine. That's a result of not much airflow through the radiator.
Yeah, exactly right. You just want to make the car as aerodynamic as you can, but you have to sacrifice the engine temperature. I know I talked to a lot of guys, and they'll probably see 240 or 50 degrees water temperature qualifying.
Well, Darrell Waltrip on the track, taking the checkered flag. His time not yet available, so we'll get that for you when we come back to Pocono Raceway in Pennsylvania on Fox Sports Net. Here's how the first 5 shape up so far. Pole position qualifying for the NASCAR Winston Cup Series Sunday, the Pennsylvania 500 here at Pocono Raceway. Wally Dowlemack quickest of them all so far. Darrell Waltrip, who just completed his lap, 6th fastest on the day so far, a lap of 53.957 seconds. Chad Little on the speedway now, John Deere Pontiac. He has finished 8th twice in his career, qualified up front last week up at Loudon, New Hampshire on the flat mile. You heard how Chad said they bought a very similar car here this weekend. Let's go back to pit road and get the thoughts of Bobby Labonte.
Bobby, you guys, in the practice sheets, you're in the top 20. What does that mean? How's that going to shake out here when you go out?
Man, I don't know. I mean, we kind of get to a point and then we kind of leveled off. So we need to pick up a little bit. And I mean, when we made our qualifying run, we really didn't pick up anything. So, and we made a couple changes. So maybe we can get the Interstate Pontiac to pick up some now.
Okay, thanks, Bobby. Thank you.
Bobby Labonte ready to come out in a couple of moments. Chad Little, 11th quick on the afternoon so far. A lap of 54.566 seconds, 164.93 miles an hour for Little. That puts him 11th on the board at this point at the John Deere machine. And we've put, 14 cars of 45 on the speedway so far, so we're not quite halfway through the qualifying order here this afternoon. Bill Elliott coming up onto the racetrack next, 94, Ford, his own team shops. And Elliott, as we mentioned a while ago, 80 races since his last Winston Cup victory, 1994 at Darlington, but they've been getting stronger and stronger.
They really have. You know, especially on tough racetracks like Pocono here, Darlington, Bill's awfully good at. It wouldn't shock me to see Bill pull off that win here at a place like Pocono.
Qualified 5th quickest back in the month of June, only about 6 weeks ago, when these teams came here for the first of 2 Winston Cup runs on the year. And Elliott did not have a strong day, came home 32nd in that event. But the next week, with a second-place finish. 6th last week at New Hampshire. Elliott coming out of turn 3 now and heading down to take the green flag to begin his qualifying run. We're glad you could be with us on Friday afternoon. Huge crowd here for pole day at Pocono Raceway in Long Pond, Pennsylvania. The start of a big week of Winston Cup and ARCA stock car racing here at the big 2.5-mile trioval. Elliott flashing under the green flag, heading off toward turn number 1. What are the shift points? We've talked about shifting. It looked like Elliott wiggled just a little there.
He did. He maybe got in the corner a little bit too hard, ran across the ripple strip, and the car jumped out on him. So that may hurt his time a little bit.
You're talking about shifting. Everybody uses the Jericho transmission here, so no clutch is needed. What exactly are you doing when you're heading down into the turn? Are you downshift there?
Well, some people downshift going down in the corner, and some people wait till they're just about ready to get back in the throttle, to come off the corner, and then they just ease the car up in 3rd gear. The ratios are so close that it's not like a street car where you have quite a bit of difference. When I raced here, I shifted just as I was getting back in the throttle to come off the corner. I mean, I figured I had my hands full getting down in the corner, standing on the brake with both hands and holding on to the steering wheel. But a lot of guys will shift going down in the corner. Some will shift when they get ready to come off the corner. But some guys also now are shifting. Ward Burton was the first one I saw, is actually shifting on the Long Pond straightaway too. He'll go up to 4th gear and then back down to 3rd before he gets to the tunnel turn.
Wow, that would make you very, very busy, I would say, as you were saying, go to the tunnel turn. Well, Elliott ripped off a good qualifying lap, a 53.878. Puts him 6th on the grid right now, but we're not quite halfway through. Pole sitter for the moment still, Wally Dallenbach. Sun shining in the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania on a Friday afternoon. Glad to have you with us on Fox Sports Net. Rick Benjamin and Phil Parsons, Matt Yoakum and Steve Burns on pit road, and Derek Cope on the speedway in the Skittles Pontiac coming down to take the checkered flag, wrap up his qualifying lap, see if he's quickest among the Pontiacs, perhaps in the top group of qualifiers here this afternoon. Has those 2 career victories at Dover and the Daytona 500 a couple of seasons back. Get the time of Derek Cope for him. Brand new team this year for Cope. 9th quickest so far, a 54.300. That's 165.718 miles an hour. Your top 5, Wally Dallenbach, Dale Jarrett, Jeff Gordon, Kenny Schrader, and Mark Martin at this point. Cope 9th. Not a bad qualifying run for that first-year team.
Not at all. I think that he's about just a little bit past midway, so he could be right on the bubble as to whether he makes the top 25.
Ricky Craven coming up onto the speedway now, the 3rd of the Hendrick Motorsports machines. This is the Budweiser Chevrolet with Andy Graves as their new crew chief this year. Another team that has high expectations, I think, and a lot of folks wondering when they're going to break through and get the victory lane as well.
Well, they started off with a bang. They ran awfully well at Daytona, finished 3rd, and they had a good run at Rockingham. I think they also finished in the top 5. And then shortly after that, Ricky got hurt at Texas and missed a couple races, and they're trying to get their program back on track. But with the resources they have, with the Hendrick cars and engines, it's just a matter of time before they get back up front.
Another driver waiting to go out to qualify really does seem to have his program together lately, standing by with Steve Burns.
Rick, Jeremy Mayfield has in fact been knocking on the door of that first win. You guys are 9th in the points and super fast in practice this morning.
Yeah, man, this Kmart RC Call Ford run really good today. You know, usually we come up here and don't qualify that good and have to start in the back and work our way to the front, but I think this week's going to be a little different. We're pretty fast today.
Jeremy, from the speeds you've seen so far this afternoon, can you put this thing on the pole?
I'm not sure. You know, we're just want to be in the top 10, top 15, and man, if we got in the top 15, that'd definitely be a plus for us here. We usually always start, you know, between 25th on back, so our goal is to get in the top 15, and if we sit on the pole, that's fine. We don't, we're still going to be happy.
Okay, Jeremy, thanks.
Jeremy Mayfield really turning a lot of heads. A lot of interesting controversy, I think. You remember he was traded sort of for John Andretti toward the end of last year. A lot of people thought that Mayfield in the 37 car would go to victory lane first. So John Andretti shocked everybody at Daytona a couple of weeks ago.
And they did have a little get together last week at Loudon. So one of those, I think Jeremy had a throttle that was partially hanging, and he was trying to get out of the way, and they came down to a last lap deal, and John was racing with somebody else and got together. But you know, I'm sure there was absolutely no intention whatsoever.
Couldn't see much on the pictures, but we understand that Ricky Rudd was kind of in the middle of all that too, and they were all jockeying for position. Craven 10th quickest so far. A lap of 54.354 seconds. That's 165.581 miles an hour for the Budweiser Monte Carlo. Craven 10th quick so far in the early going here. 17 cars have taken time at this point. Next up, the 11 car, Brett Bodine. A close call for due up onto the speedway here in just a moment as Craven cools down his machine. Brett Bodine bringing the close call phone card car up on the racetrack. Top 5 remains Wally Dallenbach and Dale Jarrett, Jeff Gordon and Kenny Schrader, and Mark Martin rounding out the first 5. Bodine with that one career win several years ago. And trying to get his own team. As we talked about the difficulties of being an owner driver, it seemed to be the trend for a while a few years ago. You do it in the Busch Series. Winston Cup, it's got to be as difficult, if not more so.
Well, I think you have more people. You have maybe 15 to 20 employees, where we have 5 employees. We've got great employees, but you'll have 15 or 20, so that's a lot of added responsibilities. We go to about the same amount of races, so that part of it's very similar. But anytime you have anybody that works people knows how what problems you can have. But Brett and I are good friends. We've talked a lot and shared some thoughts back and forth, and they're working real hard at it. This is one of Brett's best racetracks, I think. He always runs well here. So he was right in the top 25 in practice speeds, but hopefully he can pick up a little bit and slide up a little bit farther.
We'll see if he can get that close call Ford up in the top group of cars. Standing by on pit road, his brother, who has just received, I think, some pretty good news in the last couple of days. Right, Steve Burns?
Jeff, the big question, obviously, besides qualifying, is the health of your race team. How are we doing?
Well, it's doing great, better than ever. I'm here. I was at Loudon. I'm smiling, so that should mean something good's happening. And we're reorganizing a team, and I have 2 really great partners that have come in to join this team. And we're going to make that announcement, who they are and what they do and all that, in Indianapolis. But in the meantime, we're doing a lot of good things. We're already trying to build this team back up to like it was like in '94. It's easy to take something good and knock it down, and we did that this year at Daytona in July was the example of that. We didn't qualify. And it's hard to take that same team and build it back to where you need it to be, like it was in '94, a winning team. But we're on our way to do that, and that's the good news. So I'm glad to be here. I love this place, and the future looks really good for Jeff Bodine Racing.
Okay, good news. Thanks, Jeff.
Jeff Bodine will come out to qualify a little later on. Brother Brett, 9th quick with 165.8 miles an hour as his qualifying speed. Looking at Jeff Bodine's season, missed the race with an injury earlier. That was at Charlotte in May, and then didn't qualify at Daytona. But in his last five races anyway, a couple of top 10s. 8th here in June, 10th last week in New Hampshire. So they've got some quality in that QBC Ford team.
Well, they really do. They finished 2nd earlier this year at Richmond. Yeah. So, Jeff Bodine has won a lot of races. So anybody capable of winning races in this series, just again, it goes back to the equipment. And Jeff will be the first one to tell you that they really essentially ran out of money to provide the very best equipment to try to be competitive. And it looks like he's got an influx of capital coming from a couple partners, and I look to see them get back on top.
Certainly, they started off their year very, very well, as you pointed out, and it would be good to see the 7 car back up toward the front. As we look at the current standings, Wally Dallenbach out in front at the moment, the provisional pole sitter, not quite halfway through the field. The driver who certainly got a chance to start up front, Bobby Hamilton, in the STP Pontiac, won his first career race last fall at Phoenix. Hamilton very strong here back in June, was the pole sitter, in fact, when we came here about 6 weeks ago. 2nd starter last week at Loudon, so a car that ought to be very quick. We heard how Bobby said that's the same race car they brought back this week.
It's a little bit draggier than the car they had there in June.
Looking down into turn 1 after taking the green flag. Good qualifier. We talked about how this team has had its struggles this year trying to get a good finish. They've been very fast in a lot of places, but the brakes just haven't gone their way.
They really haven't. Bobby Hamilton, they had an excellent year last year. Won their first race for Richard Petty in a number of years, and ran awfully well in a lot of cases. And they run well again this year, but it's just a matter of catching that caution flag at the right time, or having a flat tire at the wrong time, or things like that. So, but they have potential. They can run well here.
Now, team owner Richard Petty has been to victory lane here at Pocono many, many times, but when Hamilton was the pole sitter back in June, first time for a Petty Enterprises car to start in the #1 position at Pocono Raceway. We'll see if he can do it twice. Well, he's off the button here, off the pace, and heading toward pit road. So it looks as though Hamilton with a problem will not come around and complete his qualifying lap.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. I don't know if he had an engine failure or something like that. He may have had a vibration. Maybe we can get one of the guys down to the pits to check it out.
Hamilton down slowly on pit road as the Wally Dallenbach crew sits and waits, hoping to see if their driver can hang on and become the pole starter for Sunday's Pennsylvania 500 here at Pocono Raceway. Our coverage of pole qualifying on Fox Sports Net. We're glad you're with us today. We've extended our coverage a little bit today. Hamilton did not take the green, we are told, so I was going to say, I was thinking he was coming around to take the checkered flag when he jumped out of the groove and ducked down low, so he does not complete his qualifying lap. Ward Burton up onto the speedway now, the Bill Davis Pontiac, the MBNA machine. And Ward, who was racked up very hard at Daytona a couple of weeks ago, he said that was the hardest lick he's ever taken in a race car, but he's bounced back and looking to have a strong day here.
And Ward was one of the cars that was involved in wreck we talked about earlier with Dick Trickle, along with Mark Martin. Derek Cope was involved. Bobby Hamilton was another one that got caught. And, that's what's so sad is the guys, they're looking for a good finish within sight of the start-finish line and end up finishing 25th with a tore-up race car. But I think Bobby Hamilton did take the green, so he drove the car straight back to the garage area, so he's done for the day. Now, if he would have had a problem on his warm-up lap and came back to pit road, he would have 5 minutes to repair whatever problem he had and get back out, but that wasn't the case. He'd already taken a green, so he'd already committed, so he must have had an engine problem or something like that.
Green flag for Ward Burton in the MBNA Pontiac down into turn 1. Ward qualified 5th quick back here in June and really dominated a lot of the show in June before the motor gave up in that machine late in the going. He was certainly one of the cars to beat just a few short weeks ago here at Pocono Raceway, and he may have the combination again today. Bobby Hamilton not taking the time, so he will have to come back and try to get in the show tomorrow. We'll try to find out what the problem was with the STP Pontiac as we watch Burton down the short straightaway off the tunnel turn now, heading toward turn 3 to come around and take the checkered flag on his qualifying lap. He'll be the 20th car at 45 to try to take time here this afternoon at Pocono Raceway. Second spot for Burton, one of his best finishes in his career back here in 1994 behind Jeff Bodine. So he's certainly got a lot of affinity for Pocono Raceway in Pennsylvania. Checkered flag waves over the Pontiac of Burton, and we'll get you his time here in just a moment as we await the rest of the field coming out to take their qualifying run. Ernie Irvin will be 44th on the grid to take time today. Burton qualifies in the 12th spot right now, a lap of 54.383 seconds. It's 165.49 miles an hour. 12th quick on the grid at this point. Wally Dallenbach hasn't had anybody get by him so far. He is still at the top of the leaderboard, qualifying for the Pennsylvania 500. Back with more in a moment. We're back live at Pocono Raceway in Pennsylvania. Rick Benjamin, Phil Parsons, Matt Yoakum, and Steve Burns today on Fox Sports Net. Pole qualifying for the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. Robbie Gordon just completing his lap in the Sadco Chevrolet. Gordon with a lap of 54.311 seconds. That's 165.7 miles an hour. 11th quick on the afternoon. Phil, they've had motor problems all weekend.
They sure. I knew they had changed one engine. I talked to Keith Simmons, the head engine builder. They sheared the teeth off the oil pump fully. He said he couldn't find anything else wrong with the engine, but now we've heard that they've actually changed 2 engines today.
So Gordon 11th quick at the moment. Morgan Shepherd on the speedway, and the Jasper Engines Ford. Let's quickly head to the garage area. Matt Yoakum, what happened to the 43 car?
Well, Rick, the STP crew, they are working under the hood, looking at that Pontiac power plant. Bobby, what's wrong with the motor?
I don't know. It went down on, I got through 1 and 2 good. It went down on 7 cylinders, so if it wasn't nothing major, I didn't want to hurt it. And that's just been our luck lately, man. It's been an easy pole for us. We got a pole here in the spring and learned a couple things about this place with these particular cars we run. And I mean, itself, they 1 and 2. He said he was like 2/10 better than anybody right there in that one corner. Then it picked up a miss after that. So we'll see if it's got a broke valve spring or whatever. It don't seem like anything major, and see if we can get ready for tomorrow.
They're disappointed, but he still has a smile. Let's go to Steve Burns.
Matt, with the Winston Cup Series point leader in the standings, Terry Labonte. Terry, I was looking at the stats on the way up here, and it's hard to believe that you guys have 14 top 10 finishes, and that says championship.
Well, we've had a pretty good first half of the year, and, we need to be a little bit more consistent if we can be on the second half, and we need to be a little bit better at some of the racetracks. Some of the tracks we didn't really run as good as we needed to, and, hey, we want to win a few races here, so we're going to try to step it up a little bit in the second half.
Okay, thanks, Terry. Still looking for win number 1, but again, 14 top 10 finishes.
And as you pointed out, Steve Burns, that is a performance worthy of a champion. He's had 3 seconds on the season, has Terry Labonte, and his first win certainly could come here Sunday. Won the June race back in 1995. Morgan Shepherd, 19th quick of the cars to take time so far, a lap of 54.691 seconds. That's 164.56 miles an hour. So Morgan with the Jasper Engines machine, 19th on the grid right now, but that could give him some problems in terms of the top 25.
Well, it will. He definitely will have to go again tomorrow and have to pick it up. He bobbled awfully bad over there in turn 1, so that kind of hurt his lap, and there was a little bit of smoke coming out of the car too. I'm not sure exactly what the situation was there.
Well, Bobby Labonte up on the speedway, the Interstate Batteries Pontiac, a driver who certainly wants to get going, get his first win of the season under his belt, a driver who certainly ought to be able to contend here, maybe for the pole, wait and see. Qualifying this afternoon for the NASCAR Winston Cup Tour. Labonte winging it through turn 3, heading toward the green flag here, and we've got a lot more cars to come your way. 22 more cars yet to take time. Green flag over Labonte. Wally Dallenbach quickest so far today. Dale Jarrett, Jeff Gordon, Kenny Schrader, and Mark Martin rounding out the first 5. Wally D, the only driver to run a lap of more than 168 miles an hour here this afternoon. A couple of guys practiced over 168, but Wally, the only driver to qualify in that bracket so far as we watch Labonte out of turn 1. You want to get up high there as quickly as you can onto that short straightaway.
You sure do. You want to get right up against the wall. You want to use all the racetrack, essentially, is what you're doing. You don't want to get up there too quick, because we saw what happened to Jeff Burton when his car pushed up there a little bit too quick. But you do want to use all the racetrack off all 3 corners. You see Bobby right out next to the wall coming out of the tunnel turn to do the same thing out of turn 3, because you have to get that momentum.
Labonte's team moved to Pontiac Bodywork this year. They were a Chevrolet team the first couple of years. What does that do to your team's program when you change? As we take a look quickly at the 99, the Exide Ford of Jeff Burton moving through inspection with their backup car. He wrecked his primary car. We showed you that earlier. They're coming out with a backup 99 machine to try to qualify as Labonte goes down into turn 1 after completing his qualifying run. The change of sheet metal, does that put him way back in?
It really does, because the Pontiac and the Chevrolet, it doesn't put them back in engines because it's the same engine. But body-wise, they know what it takes to balance the car. They got to go back to the wind tunnel and do all that stuff. Bobby had a good run. He's up in 6th position with a 53.778 second lap, 167.355.
Great run for Bobby Labonte. 6th quick on the afternoon so far. Bumps Bill Elliott back a spot to 7th. Wally Dallenbach still at the top of the board. Back with more at Pocono in a moment. One driver who practiced very quickly this morning and ran very well, Ricky Rudd in the tied Ford down to take the checkered flag, and there's some of that smoke off the right rear corner of the car. Rudd 9th quick so far. As the time flashes up from NASCAR timing and scoring of 54.111. That's 166.325 miles an hour. 9th now. He was 8th quick in the morning practice, so he's off the pace a little bit.
A little bit slower. He was about a 1/10 and a half slower than what he had run in practice. About 2/10 actually, but I figured out what that was. A lot of guys, the cars we see with the water coming out behind them, they run the overflow hose off the radiator all the way back behind the rear tire. Some of the guys don't. They leave the overflow hose up front, and that's what we're seeing with Morgan Shepherd's car and Ricky Rudd's car.
So Rudd completes his run, no problem at all. 9th quick so far on the afternoon. Nobody's been able to challenge Wally Dallenbach. This may fall to his teammate Joe Nemechek to give him a run for the pole. We'll see. Wally's still looking for his first career front row start. Hasn't ever made the pole or second spot. Maybe that's about to change here this afternoon. Talked to Jeremy Mayfield earlier, the Owensboro, Kentucky driver, and the Michael Cranifus Carl Haas Ford. And coming down to take the green flag. Very strong season. 9th in Winston Cup points. Past the halfway mark, and Jeremy Mayfield, the driver who may well be ready to win.
He ran awfully well, I think, Dover this year, and then he came right back maybe the next race after that, or maybe the previous week to that, and had 2 real good, strong top 5 runs back-to-back.
As Mayfield takes his qualifying run, let's quickly head back to pit road. Steve Burns.
And with Mike Skinner. And Mike, we were saying earlier, we were talking in Loudon, in fact, about how you're looking forward to getting back the second half, getting back to tracks you've seen once already this year.
We really are. You know, hopefully we won't make some mistakes that we made earlier in the year at some of these racetracks, and I'll have a little more experience at these racetracks. We've had a rough day here today at Pocono. We broke an engine right when we was getting ready to make our qualifying run, our practice qualifying run. So we got an engine in there. We don't know what it's going to do. We don't know what the tune-up or anything is on it, but we're going to go out and log a lap today, and if it's not good enough, we'll come back tomorrow and try her again.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Jeremy Mayfield coming to the checkered flag. I was looking at the qualifying results for Mayfield. They've only qualified in the top 23 times so far this season. And to have the good finishes they've had, that takes a lot when you have to come from the back.
Well, it sure does. We know that very well, because a lot of times with our Channel Out Chevy, we've had to work our way back to the front from the back from the